Social media, it's a big part of our culture. It's what our students are doing. But I gotta tell you, I got a love-hate relationship with it. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to use it. And that's what we're talking about today on the Youth Worker Daily. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Youth Worker Daily, the place where we hope to encourage youth workers like you with tools, tips, resources, and helps so that you thrive in your youth ministry. My name is Jay Hyam, and guys, today is a little bit of a day of confession, but also a day with a big question, because social media, it's out there. We're using it. Our kids are using it. Our students are using it. I'm using it. I've been on it for, I don't know, since it became a thing. My Twitter goes back to like 2007 or 2008. My Facebook goes back longer than that. Instagram, shortly after Instagram came out, I had Instagram. But here's the thing. As a youth worker, and I know a lot of us ask these questions, and this is really what today's episode is all really about. It's asking the big question. And the question is this: how do we feel and how do we use social media? First off, how do we feel about it? Now, there are certain things about this culture that it just is. And I feel like social media is one of those things, it's just where we are now. It's like we can't really survive without it. I mean, we can turn it off and we could do everything we can to stay away from it. But I feel like if we do that, we're really shutting ourselves off from a massive form of communication, and a place for us to be and be doing something. Social media is weird because it's a tool. It's something that we can use, but it is so kind of proliferated. Proliferate, is that the right word? It is so saturated our culture that it really is a social media world. And for the good or the bad, that's what it is. Like, it's there. We just have to face it, address it, and figure out what to do with it. And so I have to say, for me as a youth worker, well, maybe I should do this first. Maybe me as a dad and just a person, an individual. I've got a love-hate relationship with social media. As for me, there's a part about social media I love because social media connects me with friends literally all over the country. I have met youth workers from New Jersey to California, as far south as Texas and Florida, all the way up into Canada. And social media is the primary way for me to stay connected with them. And it's not like we're talking like every single day, but it's neat to be able to reach out to somebody and know that they're there and kind of have those conversations and dialogue and connections when they kind of occur. And so I really like that about social media. But as a parent, watching how my kids are interacting with social media, gosh, it drives me absolutely crazy. Because it's almost to the point of an addiction, where our kids are just constantly looking towards social media, looking at social media, trying to stay connected with friends, trying to stay connected with culture. And as a parent, sometimes it absolutely drives me crazy. And my wife and I are trying to negotiate this new thing. When our kids were little, we had a much better handle on it, but now they're teenagers and social media has changed so much that the way they're using it, it's just, we're in a tough spot. And so we're trying to figure that out as parents. But then as a youth worker, I look at social media and I immediately recognize that it is how students are communicating. It is how they're connected. Okay, there's no doubt about that. It's the way of how we're living lives right now. And so as a youth worker, I recognize that and I say, okay, here is a great tool that we can use to reach our students. Now that brings me over to the question. That's how I feel about social media. It's a love-hate. I like it and then I hate it. I like it for what you can do with it, but I hate it for how it consumes our lives. But now here's the bigger question is, as youth workers, how do we use social media? Now, I know there's been lots of conversation. I have followed some of the conversation. I have sat through seminars and workshops talking about how to use social media. But I feel like social media has changed. And recently I was listening to the Controlled Chaos podcast. And Justin had a great guest on a couple weeks ago. And he brought up the question, Justin brought up the question about social media and how we should be using it. And I was listening and I thought, you know what, there's some good stuff in this. Here's where this is coming from and going to. So I feel like as youth workers, the way that we most use social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever other platforms you use, the way I feel like we most use it is to promote the things that we're doing in our student ministries. And I think we can all agree that that's what we do. We come up with a great graphic, we put, come to this, we put the dates, the times, the locations, and we put it out there on Instagram, we put it out there on Twitter, we throw it out there on Facebook, and we use it for like a promotional type vehicle. We also take pictures of our kids doing stuff and we use those to kind of reinforce the activities, or we show, hey, here's what you missed on Tuesday night or Wednesday night or Sunday night or whenever it is that you meet with your group. And so we put those pictures up and we try to encourage kids to come and be a part of things because of what we're doing. So we use those things. But is that the way we should still be using social media? And that question comes out of listening to the Controlled Chaos podcast. And I'm going to leave a link for this particular podcast down in the description below, because you really need to go and listen to this podcast. Justin does a great job. And I wish I would have written down the guest that he had on. The name is escaping me. I didn't write it down, but the link will be below. But go back and listen. One of the things that we kind of change in the usage of social media is going from that publicity aspect where we're promoting our stuff to trying to get engagement with our students. And so not only are we promoting our things, but maybe we're putting up questions on social media, or we're putting up those memes that, hopefully we get an interaction with our students from. And I think those things are good. I'm not knocking any of those things. If you're doing those things, that's fine. I mean, we do those things. I still do those things. But I feel like we need to move social media to somewhere else, to a different place. And here's why. So I watch videos on TikTok. I watch videos on YouTube, mostly videos that are recommended to me by students, or just as I'm scrolling through or browsing through, I'm taking in that content. And I'm looking at what's going on Twitter. I'm looking at what's going on Instagram. Not many students are on Facebook, but I still keep tabs on Facebook. And I'm wondering if there isn't a better way for us to use those platforms in a way that allows us to better reach and connect with our students. And I'm not sure I have an answer, which is why this is a kind of a different episode, because I really want to hear from youth workers, see what you're doing in youth ministry. But one of the things that struck me coming out of that podcast with Justin is Justin asked a question about how we should be engaging our students with social media. And the response from the guest was something like this. I'm going to mess it up a little bit. I'm going to paraphrase it. I'm going to totally butcher it some. But really, he gave an example of him meeting with a large corporation, asking the question about social media. And the questions were something like this. Do you know how many followers you have on social media? And of course, the people didn't know what they had, but he had done his research, and so he gave the answer. We'll make up a number, 1.5 million followers, some crazy number like that. And then he followed up that question with, do you know how many people you are following of your followers? And of course, they didn't know the question. They didn't know the answer to the question, and so we're gonna throw out another fictitious number. But he gave the number, so maybe they're following like 400 people. And then he said, "Do you know who it is that you're following?" And he goes, and he went through the list, and he showed that the ones that they were following weren't really followers, but other like parts of their corporation. So like maybe stores that were underneath of the umbrella name, or maybe they were clients, or maybe they were employees. That was pretty much who they were following. They weren't following any of their actual followers. And he kind of said something along the lines of, if we want to engage our followers, then we need to begin following our followers and engaging with our followers. And so that kind of pushed me to this place where I started thinking about, how can we better use social media? And like I said, I don't have an answer, but I'll tell you something that we are trying to figure out. So I pulled my leaders together, and we started asking the question, how can we better use social media to do things like engage our students, reach new students, encourage students, and attract students? Those three things. We want to be able to reach our students. We want to be out there so that we are actually connecting with them. We want to have engagement. We don't want to just for them to follow us, but we want them to be part of the community and the conversation through our social media platforms. We want to encourage them, because if you spend any amount of time on TikTok or on YouTube, gosh, it can be a very vile and violent platform with just a lot of negativity, a lot of vulgar, a lot of sexual innuendo and sexual content. And this is what our students are watching. And so I really feel like if we're going to engage our students, we need to engage them with something that's encouraging, something that's positive, that's going to be opposite of the junk that they're seeing. And then, of course, we want to attract other students to follow our social media. So anyhow, we got together and we asked a question with those four things. How can we begin to use social media to do those things so that we can better engage and reach our students and lead them into their next steps with Jesus Christ? This is one of our vision statements. What is the next step? And that's leading us to a place for us to really think and look at TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and say, how can we rethink these platforms so that we can actually use them for something positive and something good in our students' lives? Really, we want to give our kids content that they want to see every day, that they want to be able to check in on. And we're not sure really what that looks like yet. But we know that we don't want our social media simply to be pictures from the past Tuesday or Wednesday night, and we don't want it just to be announcements and reminders of the things that are to come. We want to have real engagement with our students. So that's leading me to this question for you. And I know we don't have a lot of followers, but maybe this topic will bring some new eyes and ears to this conversation. And maybe you'll want to share some of the ways that you're using social media, because I think there's space for us to be learning from each other of how we're actually using it in an effective and healthy way. And we can encourage each other that way. And so here's what I would love from you. If you have figured out a way to use social media in a way that you are reaching students, engaging students, providing them with something that's encouraging and good, and using it to attract other students, also that you can present the gospel of Jesus Christ to them, what is it that you're doing? Do you have a web show? Do you have something on YouTube that you're posting that's attracting kids to watch? Are you doing something on TikTok that's causing kids to want to come and see what it is you're doing? How are you using Twitter? How are you using Instagram? How much are you using stories versus the static photos or videos? Those are the questions that we're asking. Those are the things we're trying to figure out. And so I think it would be a neat conversation to kind of look and share with what we're doing in our groups and with our students in a way of trying to encourage one another as we think about how we use social media. So do me a favor, would you leave a comment below and just share some of the things that you're doing? I'd even go a little further and say, if you are really passionate about social media and how to use social media with students, I'd love to talk with you, maybe do a video connection with you, and maybe record it and then put you here on the Youth Worker Daily with me as we talk about that. I'd love to even, maybe we can get Justin Herman involved, and we can get the Controlled Chaos podcast involved. of, and maybe we can do something to further this discussion. But I'd really like to hear how you're using social media. So leave something in the comments below. If you have more lengthy than a comment, I'll leave the email for the Youth Worker Daily below. You can email me, and let's have this conversation. Let's talk about social media and how we are using it, because I really want to use it, but I want to use it in a way that's going to actually work, okay? So, with all that said, thanks for watching this episode of the Youth Worker Daily. Again, a little different than normal. Really hope you would engage in this time. If you would, share this video with someone in youth ministry, especially if there's someone that's using social media effectively. Get them to watch this and get them to respond, because we want to grow, we want to learn. As always, I'm going to ask you to join our community, be a part of the conversation. Click on subscribe, ring the bell. That way you know when we upload new videos each day. Also, follow us on our social media. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We've got things happening there. You can find us real simply by going to YTH Worker Daily. It's Youth Worker Daily, YTH Worker Daily. And of course, make sure you're checking out the website. It's growing. I'm adding stuff to it. It'll be a great place for helpful resources for you and for your ministry in the months to come. Guys, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time right here on the Youth Worker Daily.